Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another segment of Facebook Live. I'm your host, Nour Hachem-Fawaz, the president and founder of Build a Dream. We take the opportunity to talk to women across the industry about their career journey and to provide tips and advice to young women and those exploring new career pathways. So I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Sergeant Wendy Drummond from Toronto Police. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Nour. Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for joining. I know in the past we've had this scheduled and we've had technical problems, but you've been so patient and committed to wanting to share your story and what Toronto Police is doing. So I'm very fortunate to be able to welcome you today. So thank you for all your patience.
Oh, you know what? It's my pleasure. And what you have going and trying to encourage and bring girls and women into the different types of workforces and environments is fantastic. And that's why I was so happy to finally connect with you and be on the show.
Wonderful. I'm really glad that it worked out. So I'm going to start off by reading your bio.
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can everyone hear me? Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, sorry. So I'm going to start off by reading your bio, just so I can do it justice, and then we'll go right into asking you questions about your career journey.
Okay.
So Sergeant Wendy Drummond is an alumni of York University with a BA in psychology. She joined the Toronto Police Service as a 911 dispatcher and soon after joined the service as a uniformed police officer. She has served on the front line in 14, 32, and 13 divisions. She was the media spokesperson for the service for 10 years and was then promoted to sergeant. In a leadership role, she managed the social media program through the strategy management unit, was the alarm coordinator at communication services, and is currently the recruitment sergeant at talent acquisition. She has received her exemplary service medal and is in her 26th year of service with the Toronto Police Service. That is absolutely amazing. Thank you for all those years of service protecting our community.
Oh, it doesn't feel like 26 years. I have to admit it goes by very quickly.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure so many things have changed over the years, and you've grown within the role, but learned along that journey. So, but just want to thank you for your services. We work very closely with Windsor Police in our local region, and I have the utmost respect for some of our police officers that work tirelessly not to just protect our community, but to advocate for more diversity and inclusion within the workforce and to ensure that our community and our workforce, our police force reflects the communities we serve. So I
Well,
know that you're
yeah,
very passionate about that.
it has to. I mean, it goes right back to Sir Robert Peel. The people are the police, and the police are the community, right? And we can't have one without the other.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I have to say uh the quote behind you, if you can dream it, you could do it, is our motto at Build a Dream.
Is it?
So it is. We always like we build dreams and
Yeah,
we want to encourage young women to pursue any pathway in any career that they dream of. And we want to equip them with the resources, tools, and support for them to succeed in that area.
perfect.
So what made you want to go into policing?
Well, for me, my personal background, I come from a policing family. So I grew up with, hearing about the days in and day out of policing. Our kitchen table talk was, I think, a little bit different than most because it revolved around my father's day at work. So it was just, it was embedded in me. And I always had that. I'm a very much a people person. I like to problem solve, and I like to, you know, make things better. So it really was a natural fit for me. And all through high school, I knew that's exactly what I wanted to do. But my parents said, they had the foresight to encourage me to go and pursue post-secondary education, which I did. And once I completed that, my feelings hadn't changed. I still wanted to become a police officer, but unfortunately there was a hiring moratorium on at the time. And that's how I got into being a 911 dispatcher. I applied for that position, waiting for the moment that I could apply to be a police officer.
Amazing. And let's walk through that conversation. And your father was a police officer. How did he feel about you wanting to pursue that same pathway?
I think it was a bit of mixed emotions. Very proud to this day. He is, one of the most proudest parents. Um, but he also knew that post-secondary education was very important, and that a person's ability to grow and mature and experience life during that post-secondary education time is very important. You really do grow and your perspectives change and you evolve as a person, and you become, all that more, um, a better person after experiencing that. So I did. I took that advice and did the post secondary. Um, so he did want me to do it. I mean, he loved the job. He was very successful, and I feel very proud to follow in his footsteps. Um, but he knew the trials and tribulations of the job as well. But it was beneficial to me to have a sounding board to be able to experience things that an officer does and be able to have that support of somebody who has the knowledge and experience and understanding. So it's been a fantastic journey.
So it's interesting because one of our goals as an organization is to bring parents to the table, provide them the same resources and tools and information so that they could be that support and uh, use that information to guide their daughter into different pathways, and in the hopes that parents themselves don't limit their daughter's opportunities in accessing these pathways, because parents, after all, are the key influencers when it comes to those decisions that young women are making. And it's really important that parents encourage and nurture that support while young women are going through that journey. So, reflecting back on your experience and recognizing that your dad is really supportive, what advice now do you have for parents who might say, I don't know if I want my daughter to be in a male dominated industry. I'm worried about her safety. I'm worried about her treatment. What advice would you give them to help encourage them to see, like, I've been a police officer for 26 years and look at the success and the pride I have in being an officer and wearing the badge, to help encourage them to help their daughters navigate this career?
Well, it's interesting because even in my time here at the recruiting, we have come across situations where, we've been out in the community doing our recruitment drives, and a mother and daughter will stop by, and that is the conversation, that mom is petrified, doesn't want, their daughter to do it, and or the actual potential candidate doesn't come forward because of you know, the thoughts and feelings of the family and policing. So if parents are very much an influencer, as you said, and they can be that kind of stopgap between somebody joining the service and not. So my advice really is, I mean, knowledge is power. So they need to know what we're all about. Do they have any misconceptions? Do they have any myths that they believe that really aren't true? Policing has changed a lot, and it has changed most progressively in the fact that, we do a lot of talking, we do a lot of negotiating, we do a lot of de-escalation and communication. A huge portion of our duties and our daily experiences as a police officer are in fact communication. So, we're always trying to relay that in particular, and that we're there as a service. Yes, we're there to protect, and there are circumstances where we do have to intervene, but really we're there as a service, and we're there to protect, and we're there to work with the community to problem solve. So having especially people from the diverse communities, having our community part of the service, we're able to work within their own communities and help build the rapport with the various communities. Toronto is so diverse, and we need the community within us to keep it the best and safest place to be. So that's really the message that we try to get out, especially to the parents, and hopefully make them understand and see and learn more about what we do on a daily basis, and try and break down any barriers or myths or preconceived ideas of what we're really all about.
It's amazing. And I see a lot of questions coming through, so I want to make sure that we get to them. But before we do, just to highlight what you just said, so every year our organization gives out a honorarium, or we fund uh, a young woman's pathway. So, for example, one young woman applied, and she was a woman that wears a hijab. And she talked about wanting to become a police officer, but her family and friends were discouraging her. So, in her application, she talked about the important role she would play in representing her community, and that she would use this money to hire a personal trainer to build up her physical strength, to
Yeah.
show that she could pass the physical testing and that she would be a great police officer. So of course she was one of the recipients we selected, and she came to the event with her mom and her parents, and they were just so proud, and you could tell that it began that conversation of support and guidance to say this would be a great example and a great reflection of the community, and
Mhm.
that her parents play that role in supporting her along that journey. So I love the advice you gave, because knowledge is power, and sometimes it's just about breaking down the misconceptions that we may have to better understand what is the full scope of the job and who would be the best candidate for that role.
Right.
So the first question that came through was anonymous, and it said, I currently live outside of Toronto in Hamilton, but spend a lot of time in Toronto and plan to move. Is this seen as a disadvantage on my application that I currently reside outside of the city?
So absolutely not. We have applicants from all over, out of province, out of country, overseas. So definitely not an issue if you live outside of Toronto. Um, clearly being once you get here, there's lots to learn if you're not used to living in such a large urban city. But it's really you as the person is who we're looking for, to be a member of our team that is going to serve Toronto. So regardless of where you live, it's you and your lived experiences and what you bring to the table is what we're interested in.
So wonderful, because I see a lot of recruitment questions coming through. And the next one was, good afternoon. What is the best way for a candidate to set them apart in the early stages of the recruitment process? So could you walk us through that recruitment process, and then talk about those attributes that make a candidate a top choice for Toronto Police?
Right. So the best thing to do, and then the best kind of course of action, is to visit our website and ensure that you meet the minimum requirements to begin with. If you don't, clearly there's some steps that you need to take to meet those minimum requirements. But what sets a candidate apart, and it's something that we refer to as being a competitive candidate, okay? And that's things that we looked at, and I mentioned your lived experience. Somebody that has lived experience, is really going to set them apart from others. Post-secondary education is definitely a value. Any type of job-related experience is valued. It's not a requisite, but it's valued. Speaking additional languages, okay, that's definitely going to be something that we would consider competitive, especially with again with Toronto being such a multicultural society. We really need those additional languages, and things that get you involved with the community, any type of volunteer work. We really like to see applicants and candidates, and not just all of a sudden start to volunteer. I mean, we really like to see that it's part of who you are, that it's in your nature to give back to the community. So those are some of the things that really set the candidates, set them apart from each other. And the grades being with your grades being good, going to the Ontario Police College, it's a very academic environment, and you must succeed in that space as well as in the physical components. So being very physically fit, being able to complete the testing. There's a prep testing, it's called. You must be able to be successful in that portion of the testing, as well as the shuttle run. So ensuring your physical fitness is up to par, and that if you hadn't have been away from the education system for a while, and you're not really have your mind towards that learning bit of what we do, a suggestion would be to go online and do some online courses. If they're job relevant, all the better. If you have any type of mental health awareness, any effective communications, any de-escalation type of courses, those are definitely going to assist you very well as well through the process. So once you feel, one of the big questions that I get is, when is the best time to submit your application? And my response is always, the best time is when you're ready. I mean, you have to be ready, and when you feel that your portfolio is competitive. Okay, it's a very competitive process. We receive hundreds of applications a week, to be honest. So in order for us to go through those, we need to have those files jump out at us. So when you're ready and you feel that you have all that, that's the time to apply. So once you do submit your application online, there is a pre-screening, and we go through, make sure you've got the minimum requirements, read through your resume, see what type of lived experience you've had, and what additional type of attributes that are going to assist you. Once you've done that, you come in for something called a pre-background questionnaire. Tells us a bit more about yourself. And then there's a series of interviews. And in those interviews, again, we're learning more about you, how you've handled yourself in the past, some of your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. And from there, it goes into a really in-depth background check. And we're looking at your family and your references, that type of thing. There is a psychological component to the to our process, and there's a physical portion as far as your fitness, and as well as your health and your eyes and your hearing.
Amazing. That was so thorough
It's a lengthy
and
process. It
detailed.
can
Yeah,
take
for sure.
8 months to a year to go through.
From the day of application to receiving the call that they can come to the first
From application to conditional employment, an offer.
wow.
Offer. It's it can take up to a year.
And that says a lot too, because you really want applicants to be committed to not only the role itself, the process and the due diligence it takes to ensure that we're recruiting the right candidates for the safety of the communities.
Being a police officer is it's not like any other profession. It really is something that warrants us doing our due diligence and really knowing a person and their capabilities, and their limitations. So it really is a profession, like I said, like no other. And we hold that responsibility very highly.
Yeah, I'm sure. So there seems to be a lot of detailed questions coming in regarding the application process. Is the recruitment process currently paused, postponed due to COVID-19?
Yeah, no. So if you've been following us on our different social media channels, we are very much continuing in our process. It's slow because of COVID. We've had to ensure we're following the guidelines, not only for the candidate safety, but for our members as well. So we are doing it, but in much smaller numbers. So again, because we're doing smaller numbers, it really does increase the amount of time. But yes, we are hiring. Please be patient. As I mentioned, hundreds of applications that we have to go through. So, but bottom
And that's a
line,
lengthy process. It's
it is.
reviewing hundreds of applications a week
Yeah,
alone.
yeah, it is.
Um, Someone asked, after submitting the online application, the part where we submit the additional document that relate to references and certificates, how far back should we show our achievements?
Well, I mean, if you feel that they're relevant and they're going to help your profile, your portfolio, then include them.
I haven't received the file number after applying to Toronto Police Services 3 months ago. Do you suggest getting in contact with a recruiter to inquire about the status of the application?
So again, it's patience. Pack your patience. It's something that because of COVID, it's added additional time to our process. So we are literally, well, we're almost 3 months behind in terms of um, reviewing and screening applications. So please bear with us. Applications are valid for 1 year from the time you submit them. They're valid for 1 year, and unfortunately, just because you've submitted an application doesn't necessarily mean you will be moved on in the process. So it's one of those unfortunates that you will have to wait. Sometimes no news is good news.
Okay. And then the next question someone had asked is, again, due to COVID, they have had a hard time completing the medical requirements, like the vision, the hearing test, due to COVID. So, should they complete the other portions in the meantime, or are you looking for a full application
Yeah, so that's in
with
reference
everything?
to when you're obtaining your OACP certificate, there is a component there for the hearing and vision. And we put out very early on that we understand you will not be able to get these requirements. You can still participate and obtain your OACP certificate online. So we are permitting applicants to complete the process, submit their application with the document only, the OACP document, and that the follow-up results from the hearing and vision can come at some point after. But candidates must be aware that they still have to comply with the requirement, the hearing and vision requirements, and that those results will be required prior to signing a conditional offer.
Okay, great. So you've referenced the website. How else could candidates inquiring about all this information stay up to date with what's happening with Toronto Police and your recruitment status?
So clearly the website,
Yeah.
tps.ca/careers, but we're also on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. We even have TikTok. I've only got one video up.
Really? Congratulations. Talk about connecting to all demographics.
We're trying. So if anybody has any tips for any stuff for TikTok, feel free. But
You should do the Tootsie slide, the Drake with your colleagues. I would love to see that.
okay, we can.
That's my first tip.
Okay, we can try and work that out. My team right now has been redeployed because of COVID, so it really is depleted down to myself right now for recruiting. But I operate all of our social media accounts, so if you have any questions, you can reach out there as well as an email. Police recruiters at torontopolice.on.ca. There's many ways to get in touch with us, and we do our best to be pretty quick with responding.
Great. And so there's one more question before I have my list of questions I'd like to get to as well. But we love when the audience asks questions because we want to ensure you get the content you need. Has Toronto Police started referring to the applications submitted after January 2020? I know you mentioned that
Yeah.
it's been delayed a little bit, but have you guys got to those applications?
Yes, we have been into the January files. Yeah.
Okay. So the what I'm understanding from Sergeant Drummond is patience is going to be a virtue in this process,
Ab-
and that your application is good for up to a year. So recognizing COVID has really disrupted a lot of communities, a lot of industries, a lot of processes. So bear with Toronto Police and follow them on every channel to see what new updates that they have.
Excellent. That's perfect.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
I can help you with your communication with a TikTok. Just
Okay.
kidding. So Lauren's like they already touched on its response. Another question. Okay, perfect. Lauren, if you have any questions, feel free to give us a shout and ask us if you have questions about Toronto Police. So before we got on this call, I asked what message do you really want to get across, especially when it relates to our goal in getting more young women to get into police services and consider this as a career pathway? And you mentioned to me that while you're actively trying to promote more women in the industry, there's still a low applicant pool, a low female applicants. What is Toronto Police doing to try to encourage more females to see themselves in these roles and then to submit their application?
Yes, we actually have a women in policing strategy, and we've really put a think tank together to come up with ways in which we can um, market ourselves, but get the word out there that one, yes, we are hiring. Yes, we want women. We need women in this role, and that being a female in policing, there are so many opportunities. We have 2 female deputies. We have a number of female officers in high-ranking positions. The manager of this unit is a female. My inspector is a female. It just goes on and on. There's so many opportunities, and we really want to increase the number of women we have in policing. So what we've done is we've got something called Women in Motion, and it is it's a week-long session in which it's a weekend. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we have applicants come in and we give them a better insight as to what's involved in policing, not only from just a training and being hands-on with what type of physical um, attributes that they're going to need and may encounter, but a bit about the education and the learning of the criminal code and how to apply it, and it's been very successful. We've had a number of successful women candidates go through that program and then submit their applications and be successful. So we've had that. We've had our first Women in Policing symposium last fall. It was, again, it was an opportunity for our members to talk to potential candidates about their experiences, how they became involved in policing, and how what their journey was like. And for those that attended, it was the first one we had. We didn't know what to expect, and it kind of blew it out of the water. I don't think we could ever replicate it. It was so good. But so we've had that. We have, while we were able to, prior to COVID, we would host female only prep sessions, Fitness Friday sessions. We wanted to ensure that women that maybe felt uncomfortable coming to a session, at least if we had a female only session, they would feel comfortable. It's a smaller environment, less people, and it just took away some of that fear of being with other candidates. So we host those, and we can really focus on some of the physical conditioning that is required. So we would host those. We had this past spring, a bus tour, and it was a bit of a virtual ride along in which we have our police bus and we had candidates, and we toured Toronto, and as we did, we came across females in the field doing their job. It was parking enforcement. It was our priority response, our mounted unit, our community response, our neighborhood response officers, traffic services. We had one of our mechanics in our garage is female. We had a ride spot check. So as we toured Toronto, we were able to stop and talk and have these female members come on board, both uniform and civilian, come on board and talk a bit about their role and what it's like. So really gave a good exposure to the various opportunities that we have. Oh, and the courts. We had a supervisor from our court services join us at Old City Hall. So it was, so we're always trying to come up with different things that really expose all the different roles within the Toronto Police Service, not only uniform, but our civilian side of the house as well. And again, our marketing in terms of our social media and just being very conscious about having women illustrated in a very positive, strong way.
It's amazing the amount of initiatives Toronto Police has invested in to really attract more female applicants. And it really aligns with a lot of the initiatives that we see have really worked in increasing those numbers, from giving them the opportunity to do the physical prep testing. I know even including in Windsor, they've done that and they've seen it increase, the numbers increase dramatically. I had the opportunity to attend the Canadian Armed Forces Women in Training session. And that was something they also realized 20 years ago, where female combats would come and they would train for 6 months. And then majority of them were being sent home because they weren't passing the physical test. And they realized the upper body strength was different for women than it is for men. Biologically, we're built differently.
Mm-hmm.
So they introduced the Women in Combat training, where women got physical training and a personal trainer to improve their upper body strength so that their likelihood of passing that physical test increased. And sure enough, it did. And then they were able to get more female applicants. And then I would have loved to participate in your Toronto tour. And then watching all these different women in different roles within Toronto Police and just opening the doors of opportunities is amazing. And it would really shape someone's mindset and pathways of all the different avenues they can explore within Toronto Police. So kudos to these amazing initiatives. And kudos to Toronto Police for saying we need to not only commit to this change, but we need to proactively create initiatives that are going to lead to that change. So
absolutely.
I highly recommend, if you're a female looking to join the police force, contact Sergeant Drummond, follow her on TikTok, follow Toronto Police on TikTok and Instagram, and visit their website, ask your questions and submit your applications, because there's so many amazing opportunities and they are looking to increase that applicant pool. I know that there's more questions that came through, so let me just make sure I answer those. So someone did say, Maria asked, when do you think the prep sessions will resume? So recognizing COVID has restricted that.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a time for, even just us getting to getting the applicants in and going through some of the interviewing that we have to do. There's a lot of steps that we take in order to ensure it's a safe environment. So now when we're talking about being physical and, the increased opportunity for droplets to be shared, I mean, we really can't risk that. So you really have to take your own initiative. I mean, this is a career in policing. You have to be able to take the initiative and have the drive to better your physical conditioning. So there's so many things that you can do online. A lot of the fitness instructors and trainers have taken to going online and sharing their training tips and programs with you. So unfortunately, I don't have a time, and I don't think it's going to be anytime soon that we open up these sessions. I have to say, we all miss them. The recruiters, we all miss them. It was a really good, I want to say, bonding experience, because we've had applicants come to these sessions for over a year as they're training, and it allows us as recruiters to see their development, their progress, and it's so rewarding when at the end of it all, we're there at their graduation and they get their badge. It's awesome. So we do miss it, but unfortunately, we just can't we can't be reckless and put people in risk.
And definitely we could all respect that and appreciate that that's the stance that Toronto Police is taking. However, I think there's a lot of great tips that you provided during this interview, which is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel.
Perfect.
And then even if they follow the steps you outlined. So looking at really identifying all your experience, your attributes, your achievements, your commitment to volunteering. And then in the meantime, if you know that the physical strength is part of the testing, then I do encourage you to access these online virtual training so that you could develop and start beginning to condition your muscles to equip yourself with the skills and the strength you need to eventually get to that point. And it shows your willingness, regardless of COVID, to want to pursue a career in policing. So great advice by Sergeant Drummond. Lauren says, "Hey there, nice to see you again, Wendy. Any word on when the recruitment team will be reunited? Also, I attended the Women in Policing Symposium and it was amazing."
Oh, thank you, Lauren. So yeah, I don't know when the team's going to be back. In policing, you can be redeployed, and be sent where you're needed most. And right now, we've got members back out on the front line. We have them throughout into our wellness and helping others get through some of the COVID questions, and ensuring that they're getting the right information in regards to COVID. So unfortunately, I don't know when the team's going to get back together. We keep in touch through WhatsApp, and we're always keeping in touch with each other. But when we're going to be able to get back in the building here and start our sessions, I'm not going to say it's going to be anytime soon.
And then here's another comment by Krista. "The prep sessions were great. I have met many great men and women through attending them. Cannot wait for them to resume." So for anyone that's tuning in, keep following Toronto Police, because as soon as they relaunch their prep sessions, you want to sign up and go to them to explore these different avenues. So any questions related? I know that there's a lot of questions related to items we've already discussed. So whether it's the vision testing or your health test, I'm gonna encourage you to then watch this episode, because I do need to get to some questions that we have not discussed as of yet. If you're waiting for your application to be submitted or to be responded to, you have to be patient, because COVID has created some significant disruption. So please be patient with Toronto Police. And then the one question I don't think we've answered is, where is the GMAA taken? So first off, what is a GMAA?
The GMAA. I don't know what that is.
Gina, do you want to maybe clarify what you're referring to? Because we don't know. Our apologies, but if you clarify, we'll help answer that. How does Toronto Police see an applicant applying to other services same time to fulfill their dreams of becoming a police officer?
So there's no restriction on you applying to multiple services. If we've got an applicant where Toronto is their dream and they've only applied to Toronto, clearly their application is going to be seen as, as highly competitive. The amount of time and energy and cost it takes to go through somebody's portfolio and go through all the process in the hiring stages is it's a lot. And so when you've got your application in with other services, when you reach a point where one service is heavily invested, the chances are other services are going to pull back because we're, if we don't want to, we don't have the time and resources to continue putting into a file when another service is most likely going to be hiring that person. So essentially, I mean, I understand if policing is your thing, and that's your ultimate goal is to become a police officer. I understand that you would have applications in other services. However, the risk there is a potential of another service pausing your application because you've moved ahead with another service.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that answer. I know it's difficult because typically if you're applying to go in to become a marketing manager, you could apply to different
Right.
jobs, but the process is not a year and it's not as extensive and involved. So it does definitely make sense in terms of the amount of resources, especially when you're getting 100 applicants a week for these
Mhm.
positions. So it takes a lot of work. So if I could just add to that, I think, listening and attending these types of sessions where Toronto Police is proactively going on to going to different events, streaming online to get the information out there. I've heard you, Sergeant Drummond, talk about being competitive advantage. And so that rings true. So you've given such amazing tips just during this session that I encourage any interested applicant to go back, review what she said, and then to summarize your application accordingly, because she was very straightforward about what Toronto Police is looking for. So Gina says the General Mental Ability Assessment exam is what the GMA is, General Mental Ability Assessment.
So to be honest, I haven't really referred to that test. If that's part of the MMPI portion, that would come after your ECI and LFI interviews, and that's when you're starting to get into your background stage of the process.
Okay. Thank you for answering that. So before we head out, because we only have a few short minutes, I have a question because I have a few questions because, again, for our as important as all these recruitment questions are, I look at trying to diversify the workforce and get more women into it. So I want to ask you a question that often gets asked to us as an organization, and just what we recognize plays a factor in the decisions young women make when it comes to their career decisions.
Mhm.
So, for one, how does a working mom adapt to the changing schedule and balance that? Because a lot of young women tend to more lean towards careers that are more family friendly.
Mhm.
And what they mean by that is, okay, for example, teaching 8:30 to 3, then you're home and then you have summers off. So it's a lot more family friendly. But I know a lot of great female police officers who are also mothers, and they're just exceptionally amazing. So how do they balance?
Um, so being a mother of three, I can honestly say it's difficult, especially if my other half is a shift worker as well. So it it's something that you have to think about, and when you're in the role, you do what's required of you. It's in your nature. You try and rely on support, so other family that you have. There are resources available that you would have to, in terms of daycare. There are options for shift workers, so you definitely have to do some research and be willing to you know use those type of resources to help get through your shifts. There's a lot of positives though, because when you're on your days off, your shift schedule, and your shift worker, you have extended days off. you're able to go to the school and be that escort to the science center or whatever through the week, because other parents might be working the Monday to Friday, but you're available through the week, and or you can walk them to school, pick them up from school. So having those extended days off really counteract those days that you're not there, the days that you're working Christmas and Easter and missing their birthdays and all that kind of stuff. But as you go and evolve in within the service, as I mentioned, there's so many opportunities. Depending on what path you take, you might not necessarily be on shift work forever, and that there you may be in a unit that has quite a bit of flexibility. So that's really my response. Shift work can be fantastic. It can be terrible, but there's always that ability to work around and make it work.
I love that you talked about the reality of it, but like you ended it with you make it work. You just figure it out. It just ends up flowing because it's what you want to do. And I can totally relate. Not that I'm a police officer. I totally admire you as a mother of three. I have 1 2-year-old, and it feels like I have 3 kids. So
Yeah.
that's amazing. But it is true. Like once you want something and you're really passionate about it, and that's what you really want to enjoy, and that's what brings you pride. And career does bring people pride. I mean, you protect and serve communities, and your kids grow up watching their mom as a hero in Toronto Police, and that's just so fascinating. And I would reflect back, and if I was a child and my mom was a police officer and then she came with me to a science fair or a science store, I'd be like, this is amazing. Here's my mom, she's a police officer. So it's just these are the stories that I think more young women need to hear, because you can make it work. It doesn't have to fit in a 9 to 5 box.
Mhm.
And truly it needs to happen. I'm sure like there's a lot of communication between you and your husband, similarly to my husband and I mean, I lead an organization that's across Canada.
Mhm.
So it requires a lot of communication, a lot of coordination, a lot of scheduling, no sleep, but you make it work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the message.
I remember days, bringing, a car full of kids and doing the switch, at a certain location and switching back and forth. And then you look at it now and you say, how did you do that? But again, you do what's required in the time. And, there's it does balance out. Like I said, when you're off shift or you're in between your shifts and you're able to do things with your kids that you normally wouldn't if you were doing a Monday to Friday. So there's a lot of checks and balances, and it ends up working relatively.
Well, look at you. Here you are 26 years later with
Yeah.
3 kids, promoting now policing and creating all these amazing initiatives with your team to help more women get in. So if this is not a testament and an example of the amazing career path that women have in policing, I don't know what is. And the more I speak to female police officers, the more it makes me so proud to watch you represent strength and community. And I just, what an honor it is for me to even be able to interview you and have these conversations. And the last question I have before we wrap up, and you kind of touched on it, but I really want to drive it home. A lot of young women talk about wanting to help people. So they look at professions of teaching because they want to work with kids. They look at professions, maybe doctor or nurse, because they're taking care of people. I know it's obvious, but how do police officers help people? And I want to drive that message home to young women that when you become a police officer, you're essentially becoming a hero and saving communities.
Well, if you ask any police officer, they don't consider themselves a hero. But what essentially in policing, you are touching the lives of everybody that you come in contact with. For the most part, when you're on the front lines, it's unfortunate, but those times are in their deepest, darkest, worst times ever. So with your ability to come in and provide them with options, solutions, protection, the need. There's a variety of ways in which we help. It doesn't look the same every day. It doesn't look the same at every call. Um, no two assault calls are the same. No two domestic responses are the same. Everybody has different circumstances that they bring to the table, and the facts are different. So um, it's really, it's really amazing when you think about all the resources and the abilities that we as police officers have to help people. And I don't think we really think about it on a daily basis. But I think when we do stop and take a bit of an inventory, um, we essentially change lives on a daily basis. It might be very small, because that's the capacity in which we have the ability to change somebody's life at that particular time. But even providing a phone number for victim services, or for the kids helpline, or making an arrest that's going to protect somebody from being injured. It's just there's a vast number of different ways that we help people every single day, in a different capacity every single day.
Um, Amazing. And I definitely see and have the opportunity to watch it through my friends who are police officers and through the opportunity of speaking to both men and women who are officers and committed to their job. So thank you so much for coming online with me, being patient. This was such a great interview. I know there's been a lot of comments, people thanking you for all the amazing information. So for those that are tuning in, this will be available in a recap along with it'll be posted on our YouTube channel with links to to Toronto Police and resources that Sergeant Drummond touched on. But before we head out and we close off the broadcast, I do want to make a statement because today was talking about women in policing, and I don't think I would be doing uh, the climate that's happening right now across North America any justice. So I just want to talk about Build a Dream stance with Black Lives Matter and the tragic death of George Floyd. Today, this conversation was not directed at that, and nor do I want people to feel that it was insensitive or we didn't touch on it. It was about talking about women in policing and really trying to highlight the role that women play within policing. However, as an organization, we do stand with Black Lives Matter and are really saddened by the tragic death of George Floyd. However, we're not painting everyone with the same brush. We will, as an organization, include resources and tools to communities about ways that we could advocate and protest against racism and discrimination in communities. And Build a Dream stands for that through our Workforce Innovators Network. We don't talk just about women in the industry, we talk about diversity and inclusion in the industry. So I just wanted to highlight that that's the stance that we took today during the interview, and that this has been pre-planned for a number of weeks and rescheduled. And in no way did Toronto police have any say in what we were talking about today. They were really promoting their Women in Policing initiative. So I want to thank you all for tuning in. I want to thank you, Sergeant Drummond, for your efforts today. And just know our organization will always be advocating for more diverse and inclusive environments and equality for all demographics. So thank you again. And as Toronto Police Services. So just for all those that are tuning in, please know that our thoughts are with the communities, and follow www.torontopolice.on.ca for more information, because just from this conversation and everything that I've seen Toronto Police do, you are a police force I'd want to work for. So thank you again. And I hope you all have a great weekend and enjoy the beautiful weather. Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.